Ma'am, people like you don't have million-dollar claims. This is probably a scam. The words hit like ice water. Brad Mitchell's voice carried that special kind of condescension reserved for people he'd already dismissed. His fingers drummed against the mahogany desk of Prestige Insurance's Manhattan headquarters. Dr. Amara Johnson sat perfectly still in her navy Armani suit. Behind Brad's shoulder, a young employee held up her phone, live streaming what she thought would be another Karen encounter for her TikTok followers. "Sir, I have all the documentation," Amara began. "Documentation can be faked." Brad leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed. "Hurricane Helena claims for a Hamptons property? These real-life stories always follow the same pattern. The live stream counter ticked upward. 50 viewers, then 100. Amara's dark eyes remained calm. "Have you ever been dismissed before, proving your power?" 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes until closing. Brad had been handling insurance claims for 15 years. He prided himself on spotting fraud from across the room. When the black woman in the expensive suit walked through his door claiming hurricane damage worth $1,200,000, 0 cents, every instinct screamed setup. "Let's start with some basic verification." Brad pulled out a yellow legal pad, his pen clicking rhythmically. "Full name?" "Dr. Amara Johnson." "Doctor of what?" "Economics. Ph.D. from Wharton." Brad's eyebrow twitched. He'd heard this routine before. Fake credentials, impressive backstories. The fraudsters were getting creative. "Address of the damaged property?" 47 Ocean View Drive, East Hampton. Brad typed the address into his computer. His screen displayed a satellite image of a sprawling beachfront estate. Tennis court, infinity pool, private dock. The property assessment showed $4,200,000, 0 cents. "This your house?" Brad turned his monitor toward her. "Yes." "Uh-huh." Brad's tone suggested he'd rather believe in unicorns. "And you're saying Hurricane Helena damaged this property how much?" "Home?" $0.2 million. "I have contractor estimates, architectural assessments, and itemized repair lists." Amara reached into her Hermes bag. A first-class Delta boarding pass fluttered to the floor. Brad didn't notice. His attention was fixed on her face, searching for tells. Nervous tics. Micro-expressions that would reveal the lie. "Ma'am, do you understand what kind of property values we're talking about here?" Brad leaned forward. "The average claim in this office is $12,000. Car accidents, kitchen fires. You're asking me to believe—" "I'm asking you to process a legitimate claim." Amara's voice remained level, professional. "Would you like to see the documentation?" Behind Brad, 3 junior employees had gravitated toward the desk. The TikTok livestream was gaining traction. Comments flooded the screen. "This is insane." "He's being racist." "Someone record this on their phone too?" Brad glanced at the cluster of phones pointed in his direction. Social media complications were the last thing he needed. But backing down now would look weak. He'd handled aggressive claimants before. "Look, I'm not trying to be difficult." Brad's tone shifted to fake sympathy. "But people like you," he caught himself. "People without proper documentation often try to inflate claims after natural disasters. It's more common than you'd think." The words hung in the air like smoke. Amara set a manila folder on his desk. "Everything's in here. Property deeds, tax records, pre-storm photographs, post-storm damage assessment, 3 independent contractor estimates." Brad flipped through the documents without reading them. His phone buzzed. A text from his wife about dinner reservations. More important than this obvious waste of time. "These could be fabricated," he said, closing the folder. "Do you have proof of income, bank statements, something that shows you could actually afford a property like this?" The live stream viewer count hit 500. Comments accelerated. Ask for his manager. This is 2024, not 1924. Called the news. Mara pulled out her phone. It lit up with notifications. Board meeting in 20 minutes flashed across the lock screen. She swiped it away without reading it. Sir, I understand you need to verify claims, but I've provided standard documentation. What additional proof do you require? Brad checked his watch. 4:51. 9 minutes until he could escape this circus. Honestly, I think you should try a community center. Or legal aid. They handle cases like yours. The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Even the TikTok comments paused. Amara reached into her bag again. This time, a business card slipped out with the boarding pass. It fluttered face down on the carpet. Cases like mine? Amara's voice stayed steady, but something shifted in her posture, a coiled energy. What kind of case do you think this is? Look, lady. Doctor. Fine. Doctor, we close in 8 minutes. I suggest you gather your materials and find someone who specializes in whatever this situation actually is. Brad stood up, signaling the conversation's end. Behind him, Janet Walsh, the district manager, had emerged from her office. She'd been watching the scene unfold, concern growing with each passing minute. The business card lay forgotten on the floor. Johnson Holdings, CEO, printed in elegant serif font. Invisible to everyone, focused on the unfolding drama. I'd like to speak with your regional director, Amara said. Brad laughed. Actually laughed. Mr. Henderson doesn't take walk-in appointments, especially not... He stopped himself again. Especially not what? Especially not unscheduled visits. The live stream hit 1,000 viewers. The young employee's eyes widened as notifications exploded across her screen. Her video was gaining momentum beyond anything she'd experienced. Please, call him. Tell him Dr. Johnson is here. It's almost 5 p.m. on a Friday. He's not taking calls about denied claims. Just tell him Dr. Johnson is here. Brad's patience evaporated completely. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to leave now. Security can escort you if necessary. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Security to claims. We need assistance. The fluorescent lights began their end-of-day dimming sequence. Cleaning crews wheeled their carts past the office windows. The building was shutting down around them. But the live stream was just getting started. 2,000 viewers and climbing. Amara remained seated, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Before I go, may I make one phone call? Brad shrugged. Make it quick. We're done here. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to speed dial number 2. Her finger hovered over the contact labeled Richard. The business card remained face down on the floor, its secret safe, for 30 more seconds. Hello, Richard. It's Amara. Brad rolled his eyes and began packing papers into his briefcase. Another desperate play, probably calling a lawyer who wouldn't answer after business hours. I'm at the Prestige Insurance office on 5th Avenue. Yes, that Prestige Insurance. Something in Amara's tone made Janet Walsh step closer. 23 years in insurance had taught her to recognize when situations were about to spiral beyond control. Security arrived. 2 guards. Carlos Mendez, a 15-year veteran with kind eyes, and Derek Thompson, newer to the job and eager to prove himself. Derek approached with authority. Carlos hung back, studying Amara's face with growing recognition. Ma'am, you need to come with us, Derek said. Amara held up one finger, phone still pressed to her ear. Richard, I'm going to hand you to the district manager. Would you mind explaining the situation? Brad snorted. Nobody's talking to anybody. We're closed. But Janet Walsh's instincts were screaming warnings. Something about this woman's composure, the quality of her clothing, the way she spoke. Janet had seen enough insurance fraud to spot it instantly. And this didn't feel like fraud. "I'll take the call," Janet said, extending her hand. Brad whipped around. "Janet, don't encourage this. It's obviously—" "I'll take the call," Janet repeated, more firmly. Amara handed over her phone. Janet pressed it to her ear. "Hello, this is Janet Walsh, district manager for—" Oh my God. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." Janet's face drained of color. Her hand trembled as she lowered the phone. The live stream viewer count exploded. 5,000, 8,000. Comments became a blur. What did he say? "She's someone important. Plot twist incoming. This is better than Netflix." Derek looked confused. Carlos stepped forward, finally placing where he'd seen Amara before. "Ma'am," Carlos said quietly, "aren't you the lady from the Forbes magazine cover? The one who—" "Carlos, shut up," Derek snapped. "She's trespassing." But Carlos's words hung in the air. Other employees began pulling out their phones, not for social media, but for Google searches, fingers flying across screens. Janet Walsh looked like she might vomit. "Brad," she whispered, "do you know who this is?" "Some lady trying to scam us," Brad replied, but his confidence was cracking. Janet's reaction suggested something far more serious than insurance fraud. The young TikTok employee held her breath. Her live stream had hit 15,000 viewers. The comment section was chaos. "Google her name right now. Johnson Holdings. Oh, this is about to be good. Someone screen record this?" "Brad," Janet said, her voice barely audible. "This is Dr. Amara Johnson. She's the CEO of Johnson Holdings. So, Johnson Holdings owns 47% of our parent company." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Brad's briefcase slipped from his hands, papers scattering across the floor. Derek's mouth fell open. Carlos nodded respectfully and stepped back. "That's impossible," Brad stammered. "She can't be—" "She's not." But Amara's calm expression never changed. She checked her watch. 4:56. "I have a board meeting in 4 minutes," she said quietly, "about quarterly performance reviews." The live stream exploded past 20,000 viewers. Comments were coming too fast to read. She asked the painter, "That man's about to be fired. Best plot twist ever. This is why we can't judge people." Brad's face cycled through confusion, denial, and dawning horror. But you can't be, I mean, you don't look like—" The silence that followed was deafening. "Like what?" Amar asked. Brad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Around him, phones continued recording. Security guards shifted uncomfortably. Janet Walsh looked ready to disappear into the floor. "I was just doing my job," Brad said weakly. "Where are you—" Amara stood slowly. "Is racial profiling part of your training manual? You assumed I was lying because of how I look. You refused to process legitimate documentation. You suggested I visit a community center instead of honoring a valid insurance claim." The TikTok employee's hands shook as she held her phone. 25,000 viewers. Her video was going viral in real time. "You called security to remove a shareholder from her own company's office," Amara continued. "Is that standard protocol?" Janet Walsh found her voice. "Dr. Johnson, I am so deeply sorry. This is completely unacceptable. We'll process your claim immediately and—" "The claim is the least of our problems," Amara said. She picked up the business card from the floor, the one that had been hiding her identity. "Brad, how many claims have you denied this quarter?" I don't know off the top of my head. Guess, maybe 50? How many of those claimants were people of color?" Brad's silence answered the question. Carlos cleared his throat. Ma'am, should I escort Mr. Mitchell to his desk to gather his things? Not yet. Amara turned to Janet. I want to see 5 years of Brad's claim decisions. Approval rates by demographic. I want those numbers in the boardroom in 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And I want Brad there too. Brad found his voice. Wait, you can't just... There are procedures, union protections. You're right, Amara said. There are procedures, legal procedures, HR procedures, and procedures for shareholders who witness discrimination in their own companies. The live stream hit 30,000 viewers. Local news reporters, alerted by social media, were already en route to the building. Derek, right? Amara addressed the younger security guard. Would you mind calling upstairs and letting them know the board meeting is starting early? Derek nodded eagerly, desperate to distance himself from Brad's disaster. Carlos, thank you for your professionalism. I'll make sure your supervisor knows how well you handled this situation. Carlos smiled. Just doing my job, ma'am, the right way. Janet was already on her phone, frantically calling the executive floor. Sir, we have a situation. Dr. Johnson is here and... Yes, sir, I understand, right away. Brad slumped into his chair, the weight of his catastrophic judgment settling on his shoulders. Around him, phones continued recording. The TikTok live stream was becoming a document of corporate accountability in real time. You know what the really sad part is? Amara said, gathering her documents. I came here in good faith. I had legitimate storm damage. I needed help. And instead of helping, you saw my skin color and decided I was lying. She headed toward the elevator bank. That says more about this company's culture than any performance review ever could. The elevator doors opened. Amara stepped inside. 47th floor, she told Carlos, who had volunteered to escort her. As the doors closed, Brad remained frozen at his desk, surrounded by scattered papers and the wreckage of his career. The live stream counter hit 40,000 viewers. The plot twist was complete. But the real story was just beginning. The executive boardroom occupied the entire northeast corner of the 47th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered commanding views of Central Park and the Manhattan skyline. Richard Henderson, CEO of Prestige Insurance Corporation, paced behind a conference table that could seat 20. At 58, Henderson had built his reputation on data-driven decisions and corporate efficiency. He'd also built it on avoiding exactly the kind of public relations nightmare currently exploding across social media platforms. His assistant burst through the mahogany doors. Sir, the TikTok video has 45,000 viewers and climbing. Twitter is picking it up. Prestige insurance scandal is trending. Henderson's stomach dropped. Show me. The assistant pulled up the live stream on the conference room's wall-mounted display. 47,000 viewers watched as Brad Mitchell sat in stunned silence, while Janet Walsh frantically gathered files. Jesus Christ, Henderson muttered. How long has this been running? 12 minutes. And, sir? Local news vans are pulling up outside. The elevator chimed. Amara emerged with Carlos, who held the door respectfully. Ma'am, I'll wait out here, Carlos said. Thank you. Amara entered the boardroom like she owned it. Which, Henderson reminded himself, she essentially did. Richard. Amara, I am so profoundly sorry, this is completely unacceptable. She set her manila folder on the conference table. Before we discuss apologies, I need you to see something. Henderson nodded to his assistant, who queued up the TikTok live stream on the wall display. They watched in real time as Brad's humiliation played out for 53,000 viewers. Comments streamed past faster than human eyes could follow. Fire him? This is why black people don't trust corporations. She handled that with class. Plot armor in real life. Justice served cold. Turn it off, Henderson said quietly. The screen went black, but the damage was spreading across the internet like wildfire. Screenshots were being shared, screen recordings uploaded to YouTube. The story was escaping their control with every passing second. "How bad is this?" Henderson asked. Amara pulled out her phone. Johnson Holdings' PR team estimates this will reach 10 million people within 6 hours. Every major news outlet is preparing stories. The hashtag is trending in 4 countries. Henderson sank into his chair. "What do you need from me? I need to understand how this happened, not just today, systemically." The boardroom doors opened. Janet Walsh entered with 3 thick folders and a laptop, followed by a trembling Brad Mitchell. 2 additional security guards flanked them, though it was unclear who they were protecting. "Ma'am, I have the data you requested," Janet said, setting the folders on the table. Amara opened the first folder. 5 years of claim statistics, broken down by demographic information. The numbers told a story that made her jaw clench. "Brad, come here." Brad approached the table like a man walking to his execution. "Explain these numbers to me." Amara spread the documents across the mahogany surface. "In the past 5 years, you've processed 1,247 claims. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am. Of those claims, you approved 68.3% from white claimants. You approved 31.2% from black claimants. You approved 29.7% from Hispanic claimants. Why?" I don't know. I mean, I never looked at it that way. You never noticed that you deny claims from people of color at more than twice the rate of white claimants. Henderson studied the data over Amara's shoulder. The pattern was undeniable and legally catastrophic. "That's a discrimination lawsuit waiting to happen," he said. "Waiting." Amara pulled out her second phone. "My legal team filed preliminary paperwork 20 minutes ago. We're seeking damages for every denied minority claim in the past 5 years, plus punitive damages for systematic discrimination." Henderson's face went white. "How much are we talking about?" "Conservative estimate, $57 million. The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of protesters gathering outside the building. "But I didn't mean to discriminate," Brad said desperately. "I was just being thorough. Some claims seem suspicious." "Which claims seem suspicious?" Amara asked. "Well, you know, when someone doesn't look like they could afford... When someone doesn't look like they could afford what..." Brad's silence confirmed everything. Henderson stood up. "Brad, you're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." "Wait," Amara said. "Not yet." Everyone turned to look at her. "I want Brad to see what real consequences look like. Janet, pull up our parent company's organizational chart." Janet's laptop screen displayed a complex corporate structure. Prestige Insurance Corporation sat as a subsidiary of Hartford Financial Group, which was owned by American Insurance Holdings, which was controlled by Johnson Holdings. "Brad, do you see that 47.3% ownership stake?" Amara pointed to the bottom of the chart. "That represents my voting shares. I could dissolve this entire company with a board resolution." Brad swayed on his feet. "But dissolving companies puts innocent people out of work. So instead, I'm going to fix the company." Henderson leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" 3 non-negotiable demands. First, my hurricane claim gets approved immediately, with a 15% penalty fee for the discriminatory delay. Done. Second, we hire an independent auditing firm to review every denied claim from the past 5 years. Any claim denied due to discriminatory practices gets automatically approved with interest and penalty fees. Henderson calculated rapidly. "That could cost us $40 million. It's going to cost you $40 million either way. This way, you help people, instead of enriching lawyers." "Agreed. What's the third demand?" Mandatory bias training for every employee in this company, starting immediately. Any employee who fails the certification program gets terminated. Brad's face cycled through panic and resignation. What about me? You? Amara turned to face him directly. You get to be the example. Your termination announcement will include the specific reason: racial discrimination in claims processing. Your employment history will reflect that termination reason for any future background checks. It'll ruin my career. You ruined your own career the moment you decided my skin color determined my credibility. Henderson nodded to security. Escort Mr. Mitchell out. Full termination protocol. As Brad was led away, Amara turned back to Henderson. I want monthly reports on claim approval rates by demographic. I want an anonymous reporting system for discrimination complaints. And I want a diversity and inclusion officer with direct reporting access to the board. You'll have it all. One more thing. That young woman with the TikTok account, the one who documented this entire incident, I want her promoted. Her willingness to shine light on discrimination makes her exactly the kind of employee this company needs. Janet nodded eagerly. I'll handle it personally. Outside the boardroom windows, news helicopters circled the building. The TikTok live stream had hit 100,000 concurrent viewers. Prestige Insurance scandal was trending worldwide. This could have destroyed us, Henderson said. This could still destroy you, Amara replied, but it doesn't have to. Change the culture and this becomes a redemption story. Ignore it and it becomes your obituary. She gathered her documents and headed for the door. My claim approval paperwork better be ready by Monday morning. It'll be ready by tomorrow morning. Amara paused in the doorway. Richard, I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came here because my house was damaged in a hurricane and I needed help. The fact that it turned into a discrimination case says everything about what's wrong with this industry. The elevator doors closed behind her, leaving Henderson alone with the wreckage of his company's reputation and a very clear choice about what to do next. On social media, the story was just beginning to explode. By Monday morning, the TikTok video had been viewed 4.2 million times. YouTube compilation videos were trending. News outlets from CNN to BBC had covered the story. The hashtag Prestige Insurance Scandal had generated 2.1 million posts across all platforms. Henderson called an emergency board meeting for 8 a.m. 12 board members filled the conference room, their faces reflecting various degrees of panic and anger. Legal counsel sat along the wall, laptops open, damage assessments scrolling across their screens. Before we begin, Henderson said, I need everyone to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. He gestured to the wall display, which showed real-time social media analytics. The numbers were staggering. 4.2 million video views, 47,000 news articles, stock price down 8% in pre-market trading, and we have class action attorneys calling every hour. Board member Patricia Volkov, representing institutional investors, leaned forward. What's our legal exposure? General Counsel Marcus Webb consulted his notes. Worst case scenario, 200 million in discrimination settlements. Best case, 50 million, assuming we settle quickly and implement comprehensive reforms. How did this happen? Asked Thomas Chen, the audit committee chair. Henderson pulled up Brad Mitchell's employment file. 15 years of discriminatory claim decisions that nobody noticed, because nobody was looking for patterns. And now a 47% shareholder has documented everything in front of millions of witnesses, added CFO Sarah Martinez. The boardroom doors opened. Amara entered with 2 associates, her legal counsel, and a data analyst carrying a laptop. Good morning, she said calmly. Thank you for accommodating the early meeting. Henderson gestured to 3 empty chairs. Dr. Johnson, please introduce your team. This is Rebecca Chen, our employment law specialist, and David Kim, our data analytics director. David has some interesting findings about claim approval patterns across the insurance industry. David opened his laptop and connected to the wall display. Spreadsheets filled the screen, dense rows of numbers that told a damning story. Industry-wide, insurance companies deny 31% of claims from minority applicants compared to 18% from white applicants, David began. Prestige insurance's numbers are significantly worse. 68% denial rate for minorities versus 14% for whites. Patricia Volkov studied the data. These numbers suggest systematic bias. Not just bias, Rebecca Chen interjected. Legally actionable discrimination under the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, and state insurance regulations. Marcus Webb shifted uncomfortably. What kind of settlement range are we discussing? That depends, Amara said, on whether you want to fix the problem or just write checks to make it go away. Henderson leaned forward. What's the difference? Write checks, and you'll be back here in 5 years with the same problem. Fix the culture, and you become an industry leader in equitable practices. Thomas Chen consulted his tablet. Our stock is down another 2% since market open. Investors are spooked. Investors should be spooked, Amara replied. You're sitting on decades of liability, but you're also sitting on an opportunity. She stood and walked to the wall display, replacing David's spreadsheets with her own presentation. Option 1. Fight this in court. Spend 5 years in litigation. Pay $200 million in settlements. Lose customers to competitors who implement reforms faster. Click. Next slide. Option 2. Become the first major insurance company to voluntarily audit and correct discriminatory practices. Turn this crisis into a competitive advantage. The numbers on screen showed projected outcomes for both scenarios. Option 2 was expensive up front but profitable long-term. Sarah Martinez studied the projections. What would Option 2 actually look like? Immediate implementation of bias detection software in claims processing, third-party audits every quarter, public reporting of approval rates by demographic, and a $50 million fund to correct past discriminatory denials. $50 million? Patricia Volkov nearly choked. The lawsuits will cost you more than that, Rebecca Chen said quietly. And this way, the money helps people instead of enriching attorneys. Henderson calculated rapidly. What about staff changes? Anyone involved in discriminatory practices gets retrained or terminated. Zero tolerance. That could be dozens of employees. Then you hire dozens of better employees. The board members exchanged glances. This wasn't just about money. It was about admitting systematic failure and rebuilding their entire corporate culture. There's something else, Amara continued. The TikTok video gave us visibility into how your employees actually behave when they think nobody important is watching. That's invaluable data. David pulled up social media analytics. The video sparked 3,400 personal stories from people sharing their own discrimination experiences with insurance companies. Not just Prestige, the entire industry. We could be the company that responds to those stories, Amara said. The company that says we hear you, we believe you, and we're going to do better. Thomas Chen looked skeptical. Or we could be the company that admits guilt and opens ourselves to every lawsuit in the country. You're already open to those lawsuits, Rebecca Chen replied. The only question is whether you handle this proactively or reactively. Henderson studied the room, 12 faces reflecting fear, anger, and calculation. What kind of timeline are we talking about? Full implementation within 90 days, Amara said. Bias detection software can be operational in 30 days. Training programs can start immediately. Public reporting begins next quarter. And if we refuse? Then I exercise my voting rights as a major shareholder. I call for new leadership and I make sure every news outlet understands that this board chose to protect discrimination rather than eliminate it. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Patricia Volkov broke the silence. What guarantees do we have that implementing these changes will satisfy the legal issues? None, Rebecca Chen answered honestly. But continuing current practices guarantees massive legal exposure. This gives you a chance to control the narrative. Sarah Martinez pulled up insurance industry news on her phone. Allstate's stock is up 3% this morning. They announced voluntary bias audits an hour ago. Competitors are already moving, Henderson realized. Because they're smart, Amara said. This story isn't going away. Every insurance company in America is scrambling to audit their practices before they become the next viral video. She returned to her seat. You can lead this industry transformation or get dragged through it. But the transformation is happening either way. Henderson looked around the table. All in favor of implementing Dr. Johnson's proposed reforms? 10 hands rose immediately. Patricia Volkov and Thomas Chen hesitated, then raised their hands as well. Unanimous, Henderson said. Marcus, draft the implementation timeline. Sarah, prepare the financial projections. Patricia, handle investor communications. What about Brad Mitchell's termination? Asked Thomas Chen. Public announcement this afternoon, Henderson decided. Full transparency about the reasons. Zero tolerance messaging. Amara gathered her documents. I'll expect weekly progress reports. And I want that young TikTok employee, Madison I think her name was, promoted to customer advocacy specialist. Her documentation skills could be valuable. Done. As the meeting broke up, Henderson approached Amara privately. This could have gone much worse for us. It could have, she agreed. But I'd rather fix problems than destroy companies. Destruction is easy. Building something better takes work. We not just take the settlement money and walk away? Amara paused at the boardroom door. Because touching stories like mine happen every day to people who don't own 47% of the company. Those people deserve better. She left Henderson with 12 board members, a crisis to manage, and the beginning of a very different conversation about what corporate responsibility actually meant. Outside, protesters had been replaced by news crews interviewing Madison, the TikTok employee whose live stream had captured everything. I just filmed what I saw, Madison told a CNN reporter. I had no idea she owned the company. I just knew what Mr. Mitchell was doing wasn't right. The story was still growing, but now it was growing in a different direction. Immediate fallout. 48 hours post-viral. The termination was swift and decisive. Brad Mitchell cleaned out his desk under security escort, while news cameras captured every moment. His 15-year career in insurance was over, his reputation destroyed, by 12 minutes of documented discrimination. Mr. Mitchell was terminated for violations of our anti-discrimination policy, Henderson announced at a press conference. We have zero tolerance for bias in claims processing. Janet Walsh faced a different fate. Her 23 years of service earned her a second chance, but only after completing a comprehensive bias training program and accepting a formal reprimand. I should have intervened sooner, she admitted publicly. I failed both our customer and our company values. Carlos Mendez received a promotion to Senior Customer Relations Specialist, his recognition of Dr. Johnson earning him recognition as someone who saw people rather than stereotypes. I just treated her like I'd want my own mother treated, he said simply. Madison Torres, the TikTok employee whose documentation had sparked the transformation, was promoted to Customer Advocacy Director. Her first initiative was training all employees on the power and responsibility of witnessing discrimination. Concrete reforms, 30 days post-incident, the Equity First claims processing system launched with fanfare. Every claim now underwent automated bias screening, with algorithms flagging potential discrimination before human review. The technology was revolutionary and expensive. We're investing $12 million, 0 cents, in bias detection software, CFO Sarah Martinez announced. It's not just about compliance, it's about being better. The real-time monitoring system sent alerts whenever approval rates deviated from demographic baselines. In the first month, it flagged 47 cases for review, resulting in 31 claim reversals and additional training for 12 employees. Every Prestige employee completed a mandatory 40-hour certification program on equitable practices. The training covered unconscious bias, cultural competency, and the legal requirements of fair treatment. Failure to complete certification within 90 days meant termination. The transparency dashboard went live on Prestige's website, showing real-time statistics on claim approvals by demographic categories. The unprecedented transparency was initially terrifying for executives, but ultimately became a competitive advantage. We're the first insurance company to publicly share these numbers, Henderson explained to investors. It demonstrates our commitment to accountability. Measurable impact. 90 days later. The numbers told an extraordinary story of transformation. Minority claim approval rates jumped from 31% to 67%, finally matching industry averages. More significantly, overall approval rates increased from 52% to 64%, proving that bias had been masking legitimate claims across all demographics. Customer satisfaction scores increased by 34% overall, with the most dramatic improvements among communities of color. But surprisingly, satisfaction among white customers also improved by 18%, suggesting that fair processes benefited everyone. The financial impact was initially sobering. Prestige paid $47 million, 0 cents, in settlements to families whose claims had been inappropriately denied over the past 5 years. Hurricane Helena victims alone received $23,400,000, 0 cents, in previously rejected claims. But the long-term financial picture was remarkably positive. Stock prices rose 12% as investors recognized that equitable practices reduced legal liability and improved market reputation. New customer acquisition increased 28%, with particular growth in underserved communities. Media coverage, global attention. The story transcended social media to become a case study in corporate accountability. CNN featured Dr. Johnson in a prime-time special titled, "How One Woman Changed Insurance Forever." The network's investigation revealed similar patterns at 17 other major insurers. Forbes named Dr. Johnson to their most powerful women list, highlighting her decision to choose systematic change over personal financial gain. She could have sued for hundreds of millions, the article noted. Instead, she chose to fix the system. The TikTok video reached 47 million views, generating 8.2 million likes and 2.3 million shares. More importantly, it spawned thousands of copycat videos documenting discrimination across industries. The hashtag #EquityFirst generated 12 million posts worldwide. International media coverage was equally intense. The BBC featured the story as an example of how social media could drive corporate reform. The Guardian's business section analyzed the financial benefits of addressing bias proactively rather than reactively. Personal victory, beyond financial compensation. Dr. Johnson's original insurance claim was approved within 24 hours, accompanied by a formal written apology from Henderson and the board. The 15% delay penalty brought her total compensation to $1,380,000, 0 cents. Exactly what she'd requested 6 weeks earlier. But the broader impact dwarfed her individual case. The $156 million, 0 cents, in previously denied Hurricane Helena claims meant that 847 families could finally rebuild their homes and lives. Real people with real stories of loss and recovery. Mrs. Patterson in Queens can fix her roof now, Dr. Johnson told reporters. The Martinez family in the Bronx can replace their flood-damaged belongings. That matters more than any personal settlement. Harvard Business School developed a case study around the incident, titled Shareholder Activism in the Digital Age. The case was taught in MBA programs worldwide, focusing on how social media could amplify corporate accountability. Intellectual over financial, the deeper victory. Legal experts estimated that Dr. Johnson could have pursued discrimination lawsuits worth $200, 0 cents, $300 million. Her decision to seek systematic change instead puzzled some observers, but reflected a deeper understanding of power and impact. Money damages one company, she explained to Harvard Business Review. Systematic change impacts an entire industry, which creates more value for society. The philosophy extended beyond insurance. Johnson Holdings implemented equity standards across all its investments, requiring portfolio companies to demonstrate fair practices or face divestment. The approach influenced $4.2 billion, 0 cents, in corporate behavior. Speaking at the World Economic Forum, Dr. Johnson articulated her vision. Capital has power, but power has responsibility. We can use that responsibility to create a more equitable economy. The transformation at Prestige Insurance became a model for other industries. Banking, healthcare, real estate, and retail companies began implementing similar bias detection and transparency measures. This wasn't about one insurance claim, Dr. Johnson reflected. It was about proving that discrimination is both morally wrong and economically stupid. Companies that embrace equity don't just do better, they do better business. 6 months later, industry transformation. The ripple effects continued, expanding across corporate America. Prestige Insurance had become the unlikely leader in equitable practices, with other companies scrambling to catch up. The transformation was both rapid and comprehensive. 47 major insurance companies adopted similar bias detection systems within 6 months. The technology vendors who supplied these systems saw their stock prices triple as demand exploded. What began as crisis management became a growth industry. Allstate, State Farm, and Progressive all launched equity-first initiatives, publicly committing to transparent reporting and bias elimination. The competitive pressure was intense. Companies that failed to adapt faced customer boycotts and investor pressure. The federal government responded with the Insurance Equity Act, introduced with bipartisan support. The legislation would require all insurance companies to report claim approval rates by demographic categories and submit to regular bias audits. Dr. Johnson testified before Congress, her calm authority commanding respect from both parties. This isn't about political correctness, she told the House Financial Services Committee. It's about economic efficiency. Bias is expensive. Equity is profitable. Values summary. Lessons in quiet power. The story illustrated principles that transcended the insurance industry. Dr. Johnson's response demonstrated the power of strategic thinking over emotional reactions. She could have shouted, demanded immediate satisfaction, or stormed out. Instead, she gathered information and applied leverage precisely. Her approach was fundamentally data-driven. Rather than relying on accusations or emotions, she presented irrefutable statistics that made denial impossible. Numbers don't lie, and they don't discriminate. They simply reveal truth. The systemic thinking was equally crucial. Rather than seeking individual compensation, she focused on fixing the underlying problem. This approach created lasting change rather than temporary resolution. Perhaps most importantly, the story proved that inclusive excellence drives better business outcomes. Companies that embraced equity didn't just avoid lawsuits. They improved performance, increased customer satisfaction, and enhanced profitability. Personal legacy beyond business. Dr. Johnson's influence extended far beyond corporate boardrooms. Johnson Holdings implemented equity standards across all investments, requiring portfolio companies to demonstrate fair practices or face divestment. The approach influenced $4,200,000,000 in corporate behavior. Forbes named her CEO of the Year, citing her leadership in corporate accountability. The award recognized not just her business acumen, but her commitment to using power responsibly. Her speaking engagements drew standing ovations at over 200 universities and corporations. Students and executives alike were inspired by her demonstration that principled leadership could create both profit and progress. The book deal followed naturally. The Mathematics of Justice: How Data Drives Equity became a bestseller, offering a framework for identifying and eliminating bias in business practices. The book's success proved that audiences were hungry for practical approaches to creating change. Social impact, measuring real change. The measurable impact was remarkable. Insurance industry bias decreased by 67% industry-wide within 12 months. The change represented millions of dollars in previously denied claims, finally reaching deserving families. Copycat reform spread to banking, healthcare, real estate, and retail. The Harvard Business School case study was taught in MBA programs worldwide, creating a generation of business leaders trained to recognize and address bias. The story inspired countless personal accounts of discrimination and change. Social media filled with stories of quiet power, strategic thinking, and individual accountability. The hashtag #QuietPower generated millions of posts celebrating thoughtful action over angry reaction. Real families shared their stories of finally receiving fair treatment. Hurricane victims, car accident survivors, and medical claim recipients posted videos thanking Dr. Johnson for creating change that reached their living rooms. The deeper message: personal responsibility. Beyond corporate reform, the story carried a powerful message about individual responsibility. Madison Torres, the TikTok employee, had chosen to document injustice rather than ignore it. Her decision to witness and record created the foundation for everything that followed. Carlos Mendez had chosen to see a person rather than a stereotype. His recognition of Dr. Johnson's humanity influenced his respectful treatment and eventual promotion. Even Janet Walsh, despite her initial failure to intervene, chose accountability over defensiveness. Her willingness to admit mistakes and commit to change created a model for learning from bias, rather than denying it. The story proved that everyone has power to create change, regardless of their position or resources. Sometimes power means owning 47% of a company. Sometimes it means holding up a phone to record the truth. Call to action: your voice matters. The transformation at Prestige Insurance demonstrated that individual actions can create systemic change. Every person who shared the story, every comment that supported equity, every viewer who watched the video contributed to the momentum for reform. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your willingness to witness and speak truth matters. The next time you see discrimination, bias, or unfair treatment, remember that you have the power to document, share, and create accountability. Share your own experiences in the comments. Tag someone who needs to see this story. Subscribe for more examples of quiet power creating lasting change. Follow the Equity First Foundation at @equityfirst.org for updates on corporate accountability initiatives. The insurance industry changed because one woman refused to accept discrimination and one employee chose to document the truth. What change will you create? What story will you tell? What power will you use to make tomorrow better than today? Final message: the mathematics of justice. Dr. Johnson's approach proved that justice isn't just morally right, it's mathematically sound. Companies that embrace equity perform better. Societies that eliminate bias prosper more. Individuals who stand up for fairness create ripple effects that reach far beyond their immediate circumstances. The 12 minutes that changed an industry started with one woman's refusal to accept no as a final answer. It continued with one employee's decision to document truth. It grew through millions of people's choice to share, support, and demand better. Your moment is coming. Your opportunity to create change is approaching. When it arrives, remember Dr. Johnson's quiet power, Madison's courage to witness, and Carlos's choice to see humanity. The mathematics of justice is simple. One person plus one action equals infinite possibility for change. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.